I have to be honest with you. When I first opened the research packet for this deep dive, I saw a number that I was convinced had to be a typo. 35,000.
It's a staggering figure, isn't it?
It's absurd. I mean, that's supposedly the number of decisions an average person makes every single day. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I chose coffee over tea, I chose the blue shirt, and I decided to skip the gym. That's 3. I am not getting to 5,000.
Well, you'd be surprised if you actually break it down, assuming you're awake for, say, 16 hours. That's about 1 decision every 2 seconds.
Like a 2-second.
Every 2 seconds. But, you aren't counting the micro decisions. Shifting your weight in your chair because your leg is asleep.
Okay, right.
Glancing at a notification and deciding to ignore it.
Oh.
Correcting your steering wheel while you're driving. Your brain is just churning through these choices constantly.
Which honestly explains why, by the time 4 p.m. rolls around, the question, what's for dinner, feels like a personal attack. I can't do it.
That's decision fatigue in action. We're all running this marathon of choices. But here's the thing that really matters, and this is the core of what we're exploring today. For the vast majority of those 35,000 decisions, you, the conscious you that's talking to me right now, you aren't even really there.
That is a slightly terrifying thought. It implies I'm not the one driving the bus.
In many ways, you aren't. It's called the user illusion. We tend to think of ourselves as these rational pilots, steering the ship of our lives, consciously weighing pros and cons.
Sure.
But the biological reality is very different. Your senses are taking in about 11 million bits of information every single second.
11 million every second.
Correct. But your conscious mind, the part of you that's trying to follow this conversation right now, it can only process about 40 to 50 bits per second.
Wait, hold on. Let's do the math on that. So 11 million coming in, 50 getting processed. That's not even a rounding error. That's a speck of dust.
It's about 0.00004% of your reality. The rest is all handled by your subconscious operating system.
So the mission of this deep dive isn't just to talk about leadership tips. It's about understanding that massive operating system running the other 99.9% of the show.
Exactly. If you want to be a better leader or just make better choices, you can't just focus on the 50 bits you're aware of. You have to understand the machine underneath. So we're going to look at the hardware, the biological systems Daniel Kahneman identified, and then the software, which is where NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, comes in.
I love that, cracking open the hood of the brain.
Yeah.
So let's start with the hardware. You mentioned Kahneman, and you really can't talk about decision-making without talking about his concept of System 1 and System 2.
Yeah.
To me, reading this, it felt like a buddy cop movie with 2 very different characters living in our heads.
That's a perfect way to visualize it. Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize for this work, basically says the brain isn't one unified decision maker. It has 2 distinct modes. You have System 1, which is the fast brain. It's automatic, intuitive, emotional, totally effortless.
So is that like the part of me that just instinctively hits the brakes when I see red lights?
Yes, that's exactly it. Or if I say peanut butter and.
Jelly.
Right.
Didn't even have to think about it.
Precisely. You didn't search your database. The answer it just appeared. System 1 handles about 98% of your thinking. It's the workhorse.
Okay.
Then you have System 2. This is the slow brain. It's deliberate, logical, calculating.
This is the part of me that has to actually focus to calculate a tip at a restaurant or, parallel park into a really tight spot.
And have you ever noticed that when you're parallel parking into a really tight spot, you turn down the radio?
Yes, every single time. Why do I do that? I mean, the radio doesn't affect my steering.
It does, actually. System 2 consumes a huge amount of energy glucose specifically. It has limited bandwidth, so if you're using System 2 to park, you literally don't have the processing power left over to listen to the song.
That makes so much sense. So if we use that corporate analogy the source has brought up.
Right. Think of the mind as a large company. The conscious mind, System 2, that's the CEO.
Right. The one who sets the direction, handles the big crises, and thinks they run the place.
Yes. But the subconscious, System 1, is the workforce. It's the thousands of employees handling the mailroom, the logistics, breathing, walking, social cues, all of it.
And the problem for leaders, and really for all of us, is that the CEO is, well, kind of lazy.
Lazy is the biological term, believe it or not. Thinking hard is physically expensive, so your brain wants to conserve energy. The CEO would much rather sit in the office with the door shut and just sign off on whatever paperwork the workforce sends up.
And this is the trap, isn't it? We walk around thinking we are these rational System 2 thinkers, But often, we're just the CEO rubber stamping a decision that System 1 made because it felt right.
And that feeling happens fast. There's a figure in the research that just blew my mind. Studies show that neural activity predicts a decision up to 7 seconds before you are consciously aware of making it.
7 seconds. That's an eternity in brain time.
It is. So when a leader says, I went with my gut, what they are literally saying is, I let the workforce decide without checking the paperwork.
Which is fine if you're deciding what sandwich to eat. Less fine if you're deciding on a merger or a hiring strategy. So a leader's first job is really just figuring out who is driving the car right now.
Exactly. You have to stop and ask, am I actually thinking? Or am I just rationalizing a reaction? Because System 1 relies on shortcuts. And those shortcuts are where the glitches happen.
Okay, let's talk about those glitches. The literature calls these heuristics, which is just a fancy word for mental shortcuts, right?
And heuristics are basically evolutionary survival mechanisms. You know, if you're an ancestor on the savannah and you hear a rustle in the bushes, you don't want System 2 to calculate the probability of it being a tiger versus the wind.
No, you want System 1 to just make you run.
Yes.
Yes.
Better to be wrong and alive than right and eaten. But in modern business, we aren't running from tigers, we're running spreadsheets. And these same shortcuts lead to what we call cognitive biases.
One of the big ones mentioned is the availability heuristic.
This is a classic. We judge the likelihood of an event by how easily examples come to mind. So if you ask people what's more dangerous, a shark or a cow, most people have this visceral fear of the shark.
Of course. Because Jaws is a movie and Cow Attack isn't exactly a blockbuster franchise.
Precisely. But statistically, cows kill way more people than sharks do. Shark attacks are dramatic, they're highly publicized, they are available to your memory. In leadership, this pops up when you make a strategic choice based on a recent memorable failure rather than on the actual statistical reality.
You're letting the loudest data point override the most accurate one. Okay, now I want to spend a minute on another glitch because this one personally tripped me up. The Linda problem.
Oh, everyone wants to argue with the Linda problem. It's a perfect example of the representativeness heuristic.
Okay, walk us through it. And if you're listening, pay attention, see if you can beat the bias on this one.
Okay, so imagine a woman named Linda. She's 31, single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned with discrimination and social justice, and she participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations.
Okay, I have a very clear picture of Linda. I think I went to college with Linda.
Right. Now, answer this. Is it more likely that A, Linda is a bank teller, or B, Linda is a bank teller and is active in the feminist movement?
I mean, based on that description, the story just screams, yeah, she's an activist, majored in philosophy. It just feels like she would be active in the movement.
And that is what about 90% of undergraduates say. Even statisticians get this wrong when they aren't paying close attention. But it is wrong.
But how? It fits her personality perfectly.
It's a logic trap. Forget the story for a second and just look at the math. Option A is bank teller. Option B is bank teller plus MIF feminist. The probability of two events happening together is always lower than the probability of just one of those events happening.
Oh, I see. Because every feminist bank teller is a bank teller.
But not every bank teller is a feminist. Option B is a tiny little subset of option A. But System 1 just loves a good story. And option B tells a coherent story that matches the profile you have of Linda. System 2 is just too lazy to do the Venn diagram in your head.
That is actually kind of scary.
Oh.
It means we prefer a plausible story over a probable reality.
And leaders have to be aware of good stories that can override basic logic. If a sales pitch sounds perfect because it fits a narrative you really like, your alarm bells should be going off.
That's a tough one to catch in the moment. Okay, there's one more glitch I want to touch on because it relates so much to how we treat people. Regression to the mean. The example given was about Air Force cadets.
This is one of Kahneman's most famous anecdotes. He was giving a lecture to flight instructors about how praise is more effective than punishment for training, and one instructor stands up and says, "With all due respect, sir, that's nonsense."
I bet the instructor probably said, "Every time I yell at a cadet for a bad maneuver, they do better the next time. And every time I praise a great one, they do worse."
Exactly what he said. And the instructor wasn't lying. That was his experience. But he was mistaking a statistical artifact for cause and effect.
Break that down for us. Why did the yelling seem to work?
Well, think about performance as a line that sort of fluctuates around an average. If a cadet flies an exceptionally bad maneuver, statistically that's an outlier. It's a low point. The laws of probability just say their next flight will likely be closer to their average, which means it will be better.
So they would have flown better the next time anyway, even if the instructor just sat there and drank his coffee.
Exactly. The yelling didn't cause the improvement. The regression to the mean did. And the same thing happens on the other side. If a cadet flies a perfect, amazing loop, that's a positive outlier. Statistically, they probably won't be that perfect twice in a row. They'll regress down toward their average.
So the instructor praises them, they do slightly worse just naturally, and the instructor thinks, see, praise makes them soft.
It's a tragedy, really. We are wired to punish people when they are down when they would have improved anyway, and then we get discouraged when people who are at their peak can't maintain it. In business, leaders do this with stocks, with quarterly earnings, with employee performance reviews.
So the lesson is, don't overinterpret these short-term fluctuations. Sometimes a bad quarter is just noise.
Exactly. Look for the trend, not the blip.
Okay, so this is all fascinating. We've got the hardware, right? System 1 and 2.
And all the bugs that come with it, the glitches.
Exactly, the bias. So if that's the hardware, I guess the next logical step is the software, right? The actual programming.
That's where neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, comes in. These meta-programs are like the operating system settings.
Yeah.
They're the perceptual filters that determine what information even gets through to the CEO in the first place.
Right.
We all delete, distort, and generalize reality based on these settings.
And what's cool is that these aren't good or bad. They're just preferences. But if you don't know your team's settings, you are communicating in the wrong language. The first one that stood out to me was toward versus away.
This is a huge motivation filter. Toward, people are motivated by goals, rewards, the future. They want the carrot. Their language is all about getting, achieving, having.
These are the visionaries, the we're going to the moon people.
Yes. But then you have away people. They're motivated by solving problems and avoiding pain. They want to move away from the stick. Their language is all avoid, prevent, fix.
So play this out. I'm a manager. I have a team member. Let's call him Dave. Dave is an away person. And I try to motivate him by saying, Dave, look at this shiny award we could win if we launch this product.
Dave might nod politely, but inside his brain isn't lighting up. It doesn't trigger his dopamine. He might even think you're being a bit reckless. But if you tell that same person, Dave, listen, if we execute this plan, we will prevent a massive client crisis and avoid working weekends next month, suddenly he is totally engaged.
You haven't changed the task at all. You've just changed the frame.
Energy flows where attention goes. You have to match their direction. If you're pitching to a board, you need to know, are they looking for growth, which is toward, or are they focused on risk mitigation, which is away?
That is incredibly practical. What about internal versus external reference? This one explains so much about how people handle feedback.
This is all about validation. An internal person decides if they did a good job based on their own internal standards. They just know.
These are the people who, if you tell them good job, they kind of look at you like, I know, I was there, I did it.
Or, conversely, if you tell them bad job and they think they did well, they'll literally just ignore you. They view your feedback as just your opinion. They can be really hard to supervise because they might rebel against feedback that doesn't match their own internal gauge.
And the external people are the opposite.
They need the outside data. They need the boss to pat them on the back, or the award, or the metrics. Without that external validation, they feel lost. They actually don't know if they're succeeding.
So for an external employee, you need to pile on specific praise. The data says you did great. For an internal employee, how do you handle them? You can't just not give feedback.
Right. No, but you have to ask them. You say, how do you think that went? You guide them to their own conclusion. If they say it went well and it didn't, then you present facts to help them adjust their internal gauge. But you can't just tell them. They have to conclude it themselves.
Let's do one more of these metaprograms. Options versus procedures.
This one creates a lot of friction in teams. Options. People love breaking rules. They want choices, possibilities, new ways of doing things. They just hate routine.
I definitely know an options person. My previous boss would invent a new workflow every Monday just to keep things interesting. It was chaos.
And that probably drove the procedures people absolutely crazy. Procedures people love the manual. They want step-by-step instructions. They get paralyzed or anxious if you give them too much open-ended choice.
So don't hire an options person to do your bookkeeping.
Please don't. That ends badly. And don't hire a procedures person to lead a chaotic turnaround where there is no manual.
This helps so much in just depersonalizing conflict. It's not that Bob from accounting is trying to be difficult by asking how 5 times. He's
Yeah.
just running a procedure program.
Exactly. It fosters empathy. You stop thinking, why are they being difficult? And start thinking, how do I translate this into their language?
Okay, we've covered the hardware, the glitches, and the software. I want to land the plane with some practical hacks. We promised the listener ways to upgrade their dashboard. And this brings us back to that 11 million bits of data we talked about in the intro.
The RAS, the reticular activating system.
It sounds like a component of a hyperdrive or something.
It's basically your brain's bouncer. Since you can't process 11 million bits, the RAS is this bundle of neurons at the base of your brain that decides which 50 bits get through the velvet rope into the club.
And the classic example here is the red car effect.
Right. You buy a new red car, and suddenly you see red cars everywhere. Did everyone buy a red car today? No, they were always there. But your RAS previously filtered them out as just irrelevant noise. Now, because you own one, your RAS has flagged red car as important.
It's like a biological search engine.
It is. And the hack for leaders, and this is arguably the most important thing we'll discuss today, is that you can consciously program this search engine.
How so?
Well, if you walk into a Monday morning meeting thinking, my team is incompetent and we are in trouble, your RAS will filter reality to find evidence of incompetence and trouble. You will spot the typo on the slide, you will hear the hesitation in someone's voice, you will literally miss the bright spots.
That's terrifying. It's confirmation bias on autopilot.
But if you program it to focus on opportunity or solution, your brain will scan the environment for resources you would have otherwise missed. It's not magic or manifestation, it's neuroscience. You are telling the bouncer what to let in.
So wake up and set the filter. That's hack number one. Another practical tool from the sources is framing. And this goes right back to how easily System 1 is manipulated.
The way you present information completely changes the decision. The classic example is ground beef. If I sell you beef that is 90% fat-free, you think it's healthy. If I label that exact same package 10% fat, it sounds greasy.
Oh, I'm buying the 90% fat-free every time.
Yeah.
Even though they are identical blocks of meat.
And that's because of loss aversion, another huge concept from Kahneman's prospect theory. The pain of losing $10 is psychologically about twice as powerful as the pleasure of finding $10. We are just wired to protect what we have.
So how do I use this in a boardroom? Let's say I need approval for a budget.
Well, if you're pitching a new strategy, don't just focus on the gains. Don't just say we could make $1 million.
Because System 1 is lazy and might not really care about a potential gain.
Right, but you might be better off framing it around what they stand to lose if they don't act. If we don't do this, we are going to lose 10% market share to our competitor. That lights a fire under System 1 much, much faster.
That is a subtle but powerful shift. Okay, one last practical tip, and this one is for anyone who hires people. Because the recruitment bias section of the research was honestly a bit depressing.
It is scary stuff. Research suggests that interviewers often decide whether or not to hire someone within the first 10 minutes.
10 minutes, I've barely offered them water by then.
Sometimes less. And that is pure System 1. It's gut instinct, it's heuristics. Maybe they look like you, maybe they went to the same school, maybe they just have a firm handshake.
And then they spend the next 50 minutes of the interview just looking for evidence to confirm that snap judgment.
Exactly. Confirmation bias kicks in. If
Yeah.
you liked them at minute 1, you ignore their red flags. If you dislike them, you completely ignore their brilliance.
So how do we fix it? Because I know I've done this. I've hired the person I clicked with.
You have to structure your interviews. You have to force System 2 to do the work. Use scorecards. Ask the exact same questions to every candidate in the same order. And most importantly, delay your judgment. Be aware that your gut is probably just a bundle of biases in a trench coat.
A bundle of biases in a trench coat. That is a great image.
It's the truth. Your gut is good for survival, but it's terrible for HR.
So what does this all mean for us? We've looked at the hardware, the glitches, the software, and the hacks.
I think the synthesis here is that effective leadership isn't about being some kind of genius who is always right. It's about being a mechanic of your own mind. It's knowing that you have a lazy CEO and an impulsive workforce. It's knowing that you have filters that delete reality.
It's about engaging System 2 when the stakes are high, even when it's tired and wants to clock out.
Yes, it's about pausing. It's about recognizing the metaprograms of your team so you can actually be heard. And it's about programming that RAS to see the opportunities that are right there in front of you.
It really removes the ego from decision-making, doesn't it? It's not, I am smart. It's, is my machine running smoothly?
That's a beautiful way to put it.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought from the research that I'm still chewing on. We mentioned it earlier, that 7-second gap. The idea that our subconscious makes a decision seconds before we are consciously aware of it.
It really challenges our concept of free will.
It does. So the next time you make a rational executive decision, or even just decide what to have for dinner, ask yourself this. Did you make that choice, or did your operating system make it for you?
And if it was the operating system, when was the last time you updated the software?
That is the question. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.